It's April the 12th, 2018. Hard to believe we only have less than 2 months of school left. The year waits for no one. We continue marching on and call to order the work session for the April meeting of the Jackson County Board of Education. Dr. Howard, I'll turn things over to you right away.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks to those of you who are able to be here in person and those who are taking the time to watch us live this evening. We're glad you're here. And thanks to the board members. I know this is a busy time of year, so we'll be as concise as we can be this evening. Just a reminder that Monday evening's actual board meeting will be at North Jackson Elementary School, and Ms. Strickland and her team have some things that they'll have available for you to enjoy starting about 6:15. So if you get there a few minutes early, they're doing some great things up there, and they'd love for you to join them about 6:15. And then the meeting will actually be in the gym. So 6:15 if you can, but it's definitely 6:30 in the gym at North Jackson on Monday. And I just want to remind you that 2018-19, 5 years goes by fast. That it's time for SACS again, and so we are not singling out, and Mr. Nicholson and this team have talked quite a bit, we're not isolating that approach. We're trying very hard to make everything that we do be deliberately blended. So the strategic planning document that we went over with the board and reflecting on our evidence of progress and places that we know we still need to work, we are doing that internally as well. So while SACS review is coming, the work that we're doing internally in the district is really preparing us for that. So just a reminder, and their visit is tentatively scheduled for late February, so we'll have that confirmed in the next month or two, I feel sure. One of the charges this board gave us several years ago, and we still work towards, is a House United, and our Relay for Life teams are up and running, and it will be held this year on Friday, April 27th. Karen Bridgman has done a lot of work leading that work on behalf of our community and certainly our school system. We have a
warmer than last year.
Keep you both. That was really kind of rough, but we still had a good turnout and still had fun. This year it will be hosted at West Jackson Middle School, and we're excited about that site simply because going down the hill and lugging tools and equipment and all that stuff down to the field at Jackson County, it will be much easier at West Middle. It's like field level, so that'll be good. And then of course, hard to believe it, but you referenced it, Mr. Bryant, the year is quickly approaching, and graduation is listed there for you at 8 o'clock on May 23rd at East High, and certainly 8 o'clock the following evening at Jackson County High School. So this is the push, the sprint to the end, and everybody's working hard and staying very focused, and we're grateful to our school leaders. It has been a very busy time of year. I just want to remind you, as we turn it over to these other folks, we have been in the process this year of transitioning from our previous AS400, which has been a great accounting system that we've had for many years, and we have moved over to Smart Fusion, and that's been a transition process, as well as Frontline Central. So there have been a lot of internal transformations happening that require a lot of attention to detail. So folks around this table have been working many hours to make for greater efficiency and improve processes. So I'm grateful to them in the work that they are continuing to do. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nicholson to give us some information and updates.
Certainly. So the first on the agenda for leadership and performance is student achievement. Just as a FYI, winter map data we certainly have, we don't have the end of year map data, but Mr. Johnson and our content specialists have been out in every one of the schools looking at that winter map data, making any necessary adjustments, providing professional learning for the teachers so that last year it was a getting familiar with what does the map data tell you, and now it is we know what it tells you, and here's some of the instructional practices and professional learning that we can put in place. And so I'm very excited about the work that's allowing us to do, and we've talked several times about we don't have to wait till the end of the year to really get a sense of how we're performing. We have that real in-time data. Just came in literally a few minutes before we came over here. Martha walked in and said, did you see that the state superintendent is starting to announce some of our AP recognition? So in 2018, 213 schools were recognized for AP STEM, and both of our high schools will receive that recognition. So that's pretty fantastic. And that's where schools with students testing in at least 2 AP math courses and 2 AP science courses. So that's pretty robust that you've got kids that are doing that well. And we know that we have students that are just high performing. And then we also have AP STEM Achievement School. There are 146 of those named in 2018, and Jackson County Comprehensive High School was named one of those. So as those trickle in, we'll continue to keep you updated. But that's just it's always fun to publicly celebrate those successes. And those AP exams are not easy. So that's a ton of work that kids put into preparing, and certainly the teachers that play a pretty critical role in helping the students prepare as well. The other piece, we just feel teaching and learning feels like if this becomes public knowledge, which likely it will be, we wanted you to be aware of it, but it's kind of like Groundhog Day. If you recall, at that podium earlier this year, we had all of the principals come and they reported out about their previous data, and they shared where their strengths were and their deficits, and they shared their plan. Well, because we're a Swiss school system, we have to monitor our school improvement, which we do whether we're a Swiss system or not. But GOSA is a little bit behind school systems, and so we started this process at the beginning of the year. Mr. Johnson's going to talk to you a little bit about it. This is not new data, but if it comes out in the newspaper, we just don't want folks to think that this is something that we haven't already addressed. So I'm going to turn it over briefly to Mr. Johnson to talk a little bit about the school improvement process with GOSA.
Well, and what GOSA does is every year we went through the monitoring of CCRPI, and our CCRPI scores come from last year. So it's our milestones from last year. So what they do is they anticipate each school, they set a target based off of our 2015-2016 school data. So 2 years ago, then they take that target and then they increase it by 3% every school year. So as we shared with you earlier this year about when we got our CCRPI results back, 4 of our schools either maintained where their scores were or increased over their scores from last year, and those schools have met those targets and those performance targets, and then our other schools that didn't meet and their scores went down, what we'll do as a part of our GOSA Swiss waivers, those schools will submit their school improvement plans for GOSA for monitoring, and we'll continue to monitor and work with them. The good thing as far as through this entire process and what we've been doing with schools this year through adding our math support specialist, and we're able to add the literacy support specialist on in winter, is that we've been able to go in utilizing map data and the projected proficiency of how students are doing along the way, and then providing that additional support. And being able to work with the school administration and the teachers at the school to provide professional learning and to help support their needs, and also be able to identify and prioritize additional instructional resources.
And I'd remind you, this is that target that gets recalculated every year. So this year it was recalculated, and they've already told us it's going to be so that target. Now, it's not every school system is dealing with the same issues, but it's one of those things that we set our goals, they change the recalculation, and we just have to recalculate along with them as well. Questions, comments, thoughts, concerns about student achievement? Well, rolling right along, this is a thank you, and I'm absolutely thoroughly impressed with our technology team and the efficiency that they're working with, and they couldn't do that if you didn't already give us a few blessings. We already have 500 Chromebooks, so that one-to-one competitive grant process that we started, that Ms. Flippin kind of instituted earlier this year, we were going to wait until next year, but with being good stewards of the money and just we were able to purchase the 500 already for next year. So we've already announced the next round of one-to-one. So some of our teachers will actually go into the summer knowing that next year they have one-to-one, and the plan would be to continue to do another 500 next year, but that was in this year's budget, so we're saving some money there, which is, and giving teachers a jump start. So thank you for making that happen. And some of those will be held aside for testing, but all of those will be, we'll have identified the next round of teachers before the end of the school year. So last year, earlier this year, it was a little under 30 classrooms, and so we'll just keep going through that process, and eventually everyone will have one-to-one, and at that point, that really kind of revolutionizes some of the conversations we've had about pace and place. And so thank you for that. We also, Mike and team have already purchased, if you recall, middle and high school teachers earlier this year got new devices, and one of the functionality of the new devices is that they don't have to be tethered to a projector. The problem is their projectors didn't operate with the machines yet because the projectors were the older projectors. So he's already purchased and has a plan, and we're working in tandem with Ted and Josh on installing in both middle schools and both high schools, West Middle being a slightly different story that Ted will talk to you about a little bit later. But they're all 4 of our middle and high schools will get the new projectors. And so when those teachers return next year, they will have the full functionality, and anybody that has a Chromebook, what that means is students can project up to the main screen and teachers can project. So again, that was something that we were not sure if we're going to be able to do this year, if we're going to have to come ask you for additional funds. And so that's very exciting that we'll be able to do that and have that, again, that full functionality for our middle and high school teachers. And then we talked about putting elementary teacher devices in elementary teachers' hands, and And Mike has already purchased, and we received word today that they are en route. So our goal is to be able to give teachers before they leave devices so that they can have some time to become a little bit more familiar with those devices. If for some reason that doesn't happen, we have a plan for how we can kind of do it, reserve a time to come in and pick it up during the summer. But we're fairly confident, are we not, that we'll be able to get those in their hands before they leave. So wonderful things going on with your support of the budget and with Mike and his team just being really efficient with their funds as well as their priorities.
With the technology purchases at the 1-to-1, how much further out is it going to be before we're totally there?
So it was a 4-year plan,
Yep.
and so this would have been going into, this was year 2, so we would have had 2 more years. If we consider this 500 as just kind of a mid-year, then that gets us, instead of 1,000 doing 1,500 this year, we obviously get there a little bit faster. We don't want to necessarily claim that that's the case because we're still trying to be very conservative with the funds. But if we could do that, then that gets us possibly a 4-year plan turns into a 3-year plan.
And how much is 500 units?
Mike, how much did we spend?
275. It's about 115,000 or 500. It was.
We pay for a 4-year plan, and what is that? What is the price on those? Do you remember?
275. I think it's like 137,000. That's a 3-year warranty. That's accidental brake. That's the license. All of that stuff. So
and it's a more robust. When we use them in schools, you can get a Chromebook for cheaper if you go to Best Buy. There's no doubt. But these are the ones that if they drop, and there's also some, for lack of a better term, infrastructure in terms of managing from a district. Some of the ones that you would just purchase at a store don't have, they can't be networked quite as easily. I'll let them speak to the technical side of that, but that's why they're a little bit more expensive than you would if you just went to the store. But
I think we should readdress that about July to see exactly where we finish up with the year with the numbers to see if that's something we could possibly work in for about 500.
we would love that.
Let's just see where the numbers fall.
Sure. Thank you. Moving right along, there is something that is not on here that, with your blessing, I shared with Dr. Howard this morning that I would like to share with you. So if you can take a look at one of the screens here. You received the feedback, we all received feedback about the calendar, and that there's just tied to this is there's never a good time for professional learning. We hear that from teachers. Pre-planning is really not the most ideal. You're trying to get your rosters, your classroom, you're trying to get everything ready for the school year. During the school day is usually not a great time either, because anytime you're pulling a teacher out, they're missing instruction. We ask teachers to come after school. That's kind of the best of both worlds, but you're at the end of the day, you're trying to go get groceries, pick up your kids. And so part of that, with those 4 days built into the calendar next year, it used to be that we would have a day that was a district day and then a day that was a school day. And what we're trying to do is take a more hybrid approach and a more personalized approach. And so what I'm going to show you, that nobody else has seen yet, we're going to share it with our principals, and then as we share with our principals and assistant principals, we'd like to roll this out to the entire district. But what we have on our Jackson County portal is Teaching and Learning has built out, and Kat Flippin is the mastermind behind the database, and then our content specialists are the ones that have been putting in professional learning. But what we have here is, instead of a one-size-fits-all, that wasn't supposed to happen. What just happened, Rusty?
It went to sleep.
Okay.
You were bored.
It went to sleep. How do we unmake it go to sleep?
Wake him up.
Yeah, I want that response.
Pour cold water.
So what you can see here, I'll talk to you about it when it comes back up.
There it is.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you. I'm glad we're not on camera. That'll be embarrassing.
Well, you are on camera. He's even got it pointed at you.
I know. I just thought if I told myself that, I'd be less embarrassed. So what we have, though, is it's almost like if you're going to a university and you're trying to figure out what courses you want to take. Right now, a lot of professional learning is by different departments. You've got to send out emails, and what our plan is to have all of our professional learning. We've already done it for the summer. But you have a registration system, you've got descriptions, you've got the dates, you actually have the ability to search this. So one of the things that we're talking about is, as a new teacher comes into the school district, we have new Fontes and Pinnell, new units of study, new literacy materials, But we also have some other practices that if you're new to the district and you're not familiar with 4 blocks or guided math, that as a new teacher comes in, they can actually do a quick sort, and when they come and do intake, Dr. Blankenship can point them in this direction, say, here are some professional learning opportunities that we really need you to take advantage of over the course of the summer. There are multiple sessions, and these are sustainable throughout the course of the school year. So instead of doing just kind of a one-stop professional learning, the quality professional learning is stuff that takes place over time. And so they can come in, they can click, they can register. When they click on register, it sends an email to the actual instructor that says this person is registered. And there's also, you won't see a whole lot in April because we really just started with June. But you can also see that these show up on the calendar, and all of our teachers already have access to the calendar where these will be. And this will be ongoing. And so when I mentioned this 4 professional learning days, instead of pulling people for a day or having people stay at school, we can really start to personalize it. So if Mr. Johnson needs some more time with guided math, he can be with other folks that also have similar interests, passions, or needs. And we're not pulling all the 4th grade or all the 3rd grade teachers. We're really being able to work with our teachers and our building level administrators to more personalize, which is what we're asking our teachers to do of our students. So again, we just finished this yesterday, or finished the prototype, the demo, and we're going to share this with our principals, but kind of wanted you to see that by putting those 4 days into the school year, we're already thinking about how we can utilize those and how we can maximize time, reduce the amount of time we pull teachers out of the classroom, and certainly welcome your feedback, insight, questions. But since that was something different than we're doing this year, it's not like we're just asking 4 days and we don't know what we're going to do those days. They really need to be devoted to collaboration time for like, Java-like folks to come together, folks that have, as I already mentioned, similar interests and needs. Thoughts, questions, concerns about professional learning?
I think, the individualized learning. I was going to say, in addition to that, I think it's important that we're changing the new teacher orientation a little bit too, so that wherever that teacher is going to be serving, this aligns to them. So it's not a whole group approach to new teacher orientation. If they're going to be, as you said, a 2nd grade teacher, there are certain courses they definitely want to be a part of, and then one day at the beginning.
If you've got a fine arts teacher that comes in, they don't necessarily need to sit and get the same professional learning as a 3rd grade teacher who's going to teach science and social studies and math and ELA. Likewise, if you have a PE teacher, but to be able to match them up with the people that they need, that can most benefit from, that's really our goal. And then to continue that throughout the school year. One of the things that we're also offering during the summer of professional learning is our Empower externships. And Mr. Schultz, if you don't mind talking to that as well as the tour on the 30th, I know as well.
Well, we're really excited. As you all know, the board, the College and Career Academy of the Empire, they've been working really hard on creating externships. And externships are anywhere from 1 to 3 days where teachers can go and really get right into the work field. And there's about 20 business or more that have actually said, yes, we're going to open our doors and allow your teachers to come in. And not only those 20 businesses, it's not just one teacher. Some of them are up to 8 or 10 people that they're asking to come in for the 3D. It's very similar to what we did with our agriculture teachers, where Shannon Lawrence and Greg Gilman went to Kubota for 3 days, and they really just got embedded into the practices that was happening at Kubota. And then they were able to take those practices back and actually implement them in the classrooms. This isn't just a CTAE push either. We want all teachers, and we're actually pushing it all the way down to elementary school teachers, because it's really important when you can see how to apply some of the different practices that they're doing in their classrooms, and how to get those students to show them, hey, this really happens. Because we all hear it. I heard it in my classrooms, but when am I ever going to use this? But when you can actually say this is happening here, it really makes an impact on the instruction and for the students learning. So we're really excited about the externships. That's going to be a great opportunity for all of our instructors. And then also we're doing on May 30th, which it is after school is going to be out and actually after post-planning. The chamber always did a tour, which would be an industry tour, and they're going to open it up. It would be a great opportunity for our principals and even any kind of administrators, because many of them are going to be still here to go out and get contacts. We haven't got them exactly which businesses we're gonna look at, but we were talking about definitely a manufacturing and a distribution. But one of the other things that was a good comment, I think what we're gonna do is at the beginning of the program, they're gonna do a little bit on economic development, but they're also gonna work with the Jackson County Home Builders Association and show really the impact of building homes and how it is really affecting our community and all the different jobs that are available out in those two. So it should be a really good program for those individuals. But that's on April 30th.
May.
May 30th. And I'll be honest, if some of y'all are interested in
That'd be
going to it,
wonderful.
I think that'd be a great opportunity to do too. So May 30th. I don't have the schedule yet. As soon as I get the schedule from the chamber, they're going to send me a flyer about it. But we are going to meet here at Jackson County. I think we're going to meet in the media center on that 30th, and that's at that morning, probably about 9 o'clock is when it'll start.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. And the last item is the strategic plan process, and I want to thank y'all for going through that process. If you remember the board retreat, we went through and looked at our strategic plan. I want to let you know that we did that with our principals and our assistant principals, and it was really interesting to see the trends, and there were really no surprises. What we knew that we've been doing well, everybody tended to agree. We've done really well. The things that we just haven't attended to or we haven't arrived at full execution, those were the things that we kind of anticipated. But you know that Troy has the unfortunate job of always having to be immersed in CCRPI, and that's important. Data is important, there's no doubt. But the whole idea behind the community-based accountability and the strategic plan process that we're going through is that we have a bigger story. We have Jackson County Comprehensive High School has got an internationally known band. We have East Jackson County High School has a phenomenal dance program. We have robotics. We have difference maker fairs at our elementary schools. We have a phenomenal ag program at West Middle. None of that shows up in CCRPI. It doesn't really tell the story of Jackson County. And you know, we are not beholden to CCRPI. We certainly want our achievement data to be better than anyone else's, but we also have to make sure that the experience, when we talk about remarkable experience, we don't want to be a culture that only focuses on chasing a score. And so part of that process, if you remember 5 years ago, we had those community-based conversations, and that's where the strategic plan was born, essentially, from getting the feedback from our stakeholders and parents. And I was a principal at that time, and I remember being up at East High and had the conversation facilitators. I think Dr. Howard mentioned at the board retreat, most of those conversation facilitators are still here 5 years later, which is really cool. It's also just a powerful indicator of people's devotion to our school system. And so we've got dates, and I think she shared the 23rd at East High of August and the 27th of Jackson County High School. And we want to revisit that. Now that you've looked at it, our principals have looked at it, our assistant principals have looked at it, we really want to have the conversations about what do we value in Jackson County, because the people we really need to be most beholden to are our community, our parents and our students. And if we're providing what experience that they value, then we know we're doing our job. And we know that as we go, it's a greater level of accountability, because if you just are chasing a score, that's somewhat limiting. But if we're really talking about what is it that you value as a parent, as Todd just shared with the business and industry, what do you need from us, then we're really putting ourselves out there and holding ourselves accountable to a greater audience. But in teaching and learning's perspective, it's the audience that we really need to be holding ourselves accountable to. So I didn't want you to think that process was just some activity that we did. It's continuing and it's growing, and the end result will hopefully be with us all working together and saying, this being a comprehensive list of core values, beliefs, goals that we want to accomplish, and that's what we would like to continue, in addition to CCRPI score, to report out to our board to let you know where we are in the progress of that process. Dr. Howard, did I leave anything out?
No, I think that was excellent. And we'll be meeting with those teachers who are serving as conversation facilitators in May, so they have an idea of what it's going to look like, and then we'll pull them back together at the beginning of August and prepare them. And Karen will help us get that advertised and promoted over the summer. So we're going to work really hard to elicit as much feedback as we can from our community. So excellent. Very good.
Thank you. If there are any questions, we're happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'll turn it back over to you.
I just want to reiterate how much I appreciate your team working together and the board's support of professional learning. We have heard over and over and over, and quite honestly, your previous conversation about wanting to achieve at the level that we should be achieving, that's going to be, we're going to see exponential, I think, return on our investment with our professional learning structure. So that's going to be good. All right, Dr. Blankenship. All right, personnel, human resources.
This is the most wonderful time of the year.
Did you say the most busy time?
Yes, that too. So you have a personnel list for consideration, and as you'll see, while we've had a few resignations, some of these are ones that we already knew about, and we just have gotten the information to process. But we have begun our hiring season in earnest, and I will tell you that while we're always sad to see people leave Jackson County, we are thrilled about some of the new hires that we have. They're just outstanding candidates, and I think that they are just going to help Jackson County continue to move to greater heights. You will see that there are some bus drivers on there being hired for the FY19 school year. And so and there are no bus driver resignations, so that's a
Good
yay! Moving in the right direction. And then we have a few transfers, one additional retirement, and a few more substitutes that we're adding. So we're busy in all areas. I will add, just as we're talking about personnel, that next month we'll be honoring our retirees, and we'll begin to, this week we'll begin to send out those invitations and get that planning solidified for that. And so we'll be holding that as we always have at 5:30 before the board meeting. I believe it's at East Jackson High School next month, so in May. Any questions that you might have regarding personnel recommendations?
I got one.
Yeah.
When we lose a coach, when we have a coach, whether it be not necessarily a head coach, but an assistant or something like that, are we replacing those folks with somebody of that same caliber as a coach, also in a classroom teaching? Or I don't want to see us lose any coaching positions.
Right, that's one of the most complex hiring situations, because ultimately we hire teachers first.
Yep.
But we also know that coaching is extremely important to hire good, high quality coaches, because sometimes that sport is the reason that children are coming to school. And that's their first reason. And then if they're coming, then it's our job to make sure that we're capturing them so that they want to come for all the academic reasons as well. But I mean, that's just, being honest, that for some children, that is their motivation. Right. For my brother, that was his motivation. Yep. He went for basketball. I mean, hands down. Yep. But so in that situation, what we're doing is we're working to find highly qualified as academic teachers as well as coaching. So when we advertise postings, if we know we have a specific need, then we're also including that in the advertisement. When we have openings at our elementary and middle schools, they're working in tandem with our high school athletic directors and principals to make sure that, if they have someone that they're hiring into a position, sometimes it's that an elementary or middle school hire a teacher who has a coaching expertise, and so they share that with the high school in case that they have that need. Other times the high school is sharing, hey, we have this coaching need, so as you're looking for candidates, please, put that out there so that if there's an opportunity to match that up, then we're able to do that. So they work very well together to collaborate and hire. We've got that situation going on in a couple of cases right now.
Good.
One challenge that I would just mention that we have experienced in the past, and I don't think we're experiencing it right now, but folks reach different phases in their life and they still want to teach, but they don't want to coach anymore. Yeah. So then when they give up coaching, but you don't have a position, you're kind of in a difficult spot, and that's where we have to, I know, that's where we have to kind of backfill sometime with training community and lay coaches, because if you don't have a teaching slot, but somebody stepped out of their coaching responsibility, you're kind of hands are tied.
And I will say that, one of the things that we're looking at as PE positions don't open up very often, but as those positions open up, we're looking to make sure that those individuals that we hire into those positions understand that their expectation is to coach. So
Elementary, middle, and high.
all grade levels.
Great question.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is our enrollment update. As you can see, we have gone up another 16 students, and I believe it was 16 the month before. So that seems to be a steady increase for us.
It's 14 last month.
What's that?
It's 14, now it's 16. So we're
Yes,
increasing.
yeah,
So-
that's right.
So now it's that trend is still there.
Yes, we're continuing to see a little uptick there. It does seem to be fairly spread out across all of our schools, so that's
West Elementary.
That's a good thing, except for West Elementary, yes ma'am. They had the,
And South. South has a really
West and
significant
South
shift.
had the highest, number of new
good.
students.
It's good to see that that's in the south end of the county start to pick up.
It is, and I was also pleased to see Maysville picked up some students as well.
Yeah, that's good.
But we certainly, are considering this and are watching it closely for our planning purposes. We've been in close communication with Dr. Hardegree about some potential needs that she may have, particularly in the early grades. So. We also have for this month our salary schedules and supplement schedules for your review and approval. We don't have the state salary schedule, certified salary schedule is not, there's no change to that, but it hasn't been formally published yet. So as soon as that is, we'll share that with you all. I expect that it will be next month. But we do have our supplement schedule, which we shared with you at the board retreat. There are no changes to what we shared at the board retreat. That's been included for your review. And then the non-teaching salary schedule, I've highlighted any changes that are that we're requesting on that. Most of the changes are simply revisions to position titles, but there are a couple of changes on here that are that we're requesting to reclassify a position to put it more in line compensation-wise with the surrounding districts, as well as we are adding the athletic director position at that high school. That was not on our non-teaching salary schedule before, and we're simply just moving it from the certified teaching salary schedule to this salary schedule.
So in years past, that's usually been contracted plus additional days and a supplement, and now that we're moving towards this.
Yeah, just putting it on here at 240 days, which is a 12-month contract. One other change that might look a little odd on the second page, we had on this salary schedule a 210-day high school assistant principal. We're just changing that number of days from 210 to 220. That's more in line with what the needs are at the high school level for an assistant principal to work. And of course, each high school will have a 240-day assistant principal, and that's already on this schedule. I went through that rather quickly. Are there any questions?
Well, and Dr. Blankenship will be at SPDP tomorrow, but anyone can call us Monday. All day will be in the office. So if you have some questions as you review it, please feel free to call us.
Or you can email me, and I'm happy to respond by email. I'll have a few breaks tomorrow that I could respond if needed. Our FY19 contract process, I've briefly mentioned this before. As you know, we have been transitioning to a new human resource information system. It's really our electronic personnel record system called Frontline Central. And what we're able to do with that is administer forms and contracts through that platform. And so we've been working, I just have to commend our team. Martha Wilson, Linda Campbell, Amanda Hill, and Michelle Bowen have worked diligently to help make this happen. And so we're going to be meeting with all of the schools over the next 2 to 2.5 weeks to go through the process of introducing this new platform, which is very user-friendly, but they will actually be able to retrieve their contract from this platform, sign it, and then we'll have it back to archives. So we're very, very excited about that and the ease of use that there seems to be with this platform. So that will be happening over the next, like I said, 2 to 3 weeks. And then additional staff requests. At this time, we talked at the retreat about some additional staffing needs that we may have, and we're still looking at that and monitoring it very closely. We would like to ask, we know that we have some special education positions that we are going to need to add based on student needs. And then we may have a couple of growth positions that we need due to growth in some areas, as you can see here, that we would like to ask your blessing that if the tax digest, we're not prepared to hire these positions now, but if the tax digest comes back that we could manage it within our budget, we would like your blessing to go ahead and begin to post those positions, because as you know, this is the high time to hire the best candidates, and if we can go ahead and begin the process, and I've been talking with Anna, and you know, she's hopefully going to have those numbers here in a very short amount of time, and then hopefully we would see whether or not we can move forward with some of those positions. So I'd love for you to consider.
How many positions are you talking about?
Well,
That's the big question.
It is, and you're exactly right, that is the big
It is a
question.
lot.
Well, it's more than we will be able to. I mean, honestly, based on requests from schools, it's more than we'll be able to.
Yes.
But we want, we know that we're gonna need at least 1 or 2 at both West Elementary and West Middle. We just know that from the growth numbers. So right now, what I would suggest is that as soon as we hear from Mr. Sargent, we have a final number, then I circle back to you and get your blessing for somewhere between at least 3 to 5 positions now. So that if we don't do it pretty soon, then we're gonna find ourselves in June trying to find folks, and it's already getting a little bit competitive to find quality teachers. So we commit to not overextending, but we really need to. I mean, you see the enrollment is going up by 15, 20 kids a month,
Yeah.
and it's kind of scary.
So that's just for the growth. Does that include, is that regular ed or is that also the special ed?
That's
needs?
just regular.
that's just regular.
So how many special ed needs do we?
Jan is, she's looking at least 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Just for, we had 72 additional IDEA students just this year in terms of year over year.
Wow.
So she's, that's pretty significant. And I wish that we were prepared, to be very honest with you, to tell you exactly how many we need. But when you're doing spring IEPs and you're finishing up your service model, you're continuing to reevaluate, is it co-teaching, is it going to be, so I think we will need at least 7 or 8 special ed.
Yeah, it was at least 6 to 8 for sure.
And then 3 to 5 regular ed. We wouldn't proceed with posting any of those until we contacted you and got your blessing, but I just wanted to make you aware that you're facing that.
Just to give you an example, at West Elementary, they had, during kindergarten roundup, they had 130 registered during kindergarten roundup, and that was, I think, 30 more than they have in the past.
Linda's probably got, that's exactly right. And I want to say last year they only had about 88 or 90 people. It wasn't 100
Yeah,
by the end.
yeah, so
Right?
they had
About
30
more.
And then they expect that last year they had 30 more that registered after kindergarten roundup.
So it could be 60 more.
It could
If not
be
more.
100, if not more.
It very well
Yeah,
could.
they usually have anywhere after we've done roundup there, 20 to 30 more kids come in throughout the summer, and just
Because
with
I
all
would
the
say
construction.
there's a lot, and with all the building and everything going, there's a lot gonna move in.
I mean, there are 4 major subdivisions going in right now, and they've got houses going up, so yeah.
So, you know, it would behoove us as soon as we see that we feasibly and fiscally can to begin to advertise and hire those positions.
Is it Anna's turn yet?
I believe that Anna.
I think this has been probably one of the most challenging personnel seasons we've seen, because of the growth, because of the increased need in special populations, and then aligning that to, there's some really, thanks to Martha and many others, there's some really quality work going on to make sure we're optimizing funding. So as you know, however, FTE is a year later. So with the scheduling, we're looking very closely, but it doesn't change the fact that we have 70 more than we did this time last year, and we need them now. And so we'll be very efficient in scheduling going forward and doing the very best we can to
And make sure we
optimize
earn those
and make sure we
positions.
earn them. But right now, we didn't earn them because they weren't here.
Yeah.
So, they're here now, for sure. So we will keep you abreast of that, and the document that Dr. Blankenship shared with you kind of gave you by school the additional needs, and we're just continuing to revise that. But we'll, as soon as we hear from the final tax digest, so we know a little bit better, we will prioritize what we think is most important, and then we'll just have to go back to the drawing board. And so, all right, Anna has some good news, some good news, and some.
Oh, she knows how we're gonna pay for all this.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
She's already got a plan.
Yes, absolutely.
See there?
The money tree and some miracle grow.
Make it hard.
Well, the first thing I want to start with, and I'm sure all of you are aware, but it's just such fabulous news. I just want to discuss it and make sure that anybody that's watching is aware of it too, is that the 2019 budget that the governor signed, it completely eliminated austerity. So that for us means an increase in state revenues of $725,000. So that's a huge, huge thing, and hopefully that's going to be a trend that continues, and we won't see funding reductions for a long time. So that was just a great thing to hear from the state level. And then if you want to look at our financials, then we're looking very, very good. It still makes me a little nervous and a little sick to my stomach when I hear some of the significant increase in staffing that we need. I mean, luckily we've gotten to a point where our fund balance is continuing to be stable and look good and be at a good place. And as long as we continue kind of on the same trend, we should end up with about 10 million for the end of the fiscal year. So, but it's still, I mean, still right now with the projected numbers for the tax digest and our property taxes, it would still mean use dipping into fund balance to fund some of these additional staffing needs, unless that tax digest increases quite a bit more than what I projected. So
we have to be reminded, I know they know this, but while the austerity reduction of 725 helps us, it doesn't offset the 1.9 million in TRS.
Right.
And that's on existing
Right.
staff. That doesn't
That's right.
account for any
Include
additional
additional.
staff that we have to hire. So.
yeah, because you have to think about between 85 and 90,000 per position, the total cost, and that of course is just an average, because if you get your higher certificated, more experience, then that increases significantly. But it's, again, we're growing, so it's something that we'll have to consider and look at and just keep punching the numbers. But then with our expenses, we're of course at 75% of the year, and we are at 73%, so we're 2% below where we are. So we're just continue to be conservative and use our funds wisely in preparation that we're probably gonna need some of that for next year.
To roll it over, yeah,
Yep.
sure.
So all of that's good and it's in line, and our revenue collections are looking fantastic. For SPLOST this month, it was a little dip in
When you
SPLOST.
go back February,
It's just
tended to be a little lower month.
Well, one is a short month.
Yep.
And two, it's just, it's just kind of one of those
Cold
slower.
and after Christmas.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's just slower. Everybody's kind of saving up for spring break, and so if you look year over year, it was still a small increase. So it's not like anything detrimental or unusual or any kind of trend that we don't expect to see. So hopefully next month it'll be right back up there in the high 500s, and we'll just keep on.
So that's all good news, and she alluded to, but I just want to send another shout out to Anna and Aaron and the entire team who have been transitioning to Smart Fusion. When it rains, it pours. The day that we're supposed to go live with Smart Fusion, the auditors call, and they're here too. So Anna works.
So yes, we are. That is something we should probably mention too. We are in the middle of our fiscal year 17 audit. So, and they are. They've been here a couple of days last week, a few days this week. There'll probably be a couple more days next week for them to finish up field work. But so far so good. The last update I got is everything fine. No deficiencies, misstatements, or findings at this point. So everything's good, and hopefully they'll be done soon and mark another thing off the list.
Can I go back to personnel? Just briefly,
Of course.
there will be, I noticed there will be one addition. I failed to mention this, and I just wanted to make sure that I did. There will be one addition to your personnel recommendation list for your approval on Monday, and that is that we are recommending Ms. Janda Palmer as principal of East Jackson High
Yeah.
School.
There.
You got it.
Okay, good.
We visited with that staff today, and filling the high school position is always very, very hard and very important. And Dr. Blankenship organized an excellent process. And you want to speak to that process briefly, especially because that's really a critical piece to the puzzle.
So very similar process to what we've used to fill our other leadership positions. We post the vacancy for 10 days, and it is posted nationwide. From that, we had about, I don't remember the number of candidates that started the process, but we had 13 submitted applications. And so from there, we narrowed that down to an interview pool and then selected Ms. Palmer. That committee was comprised of teachers and staff members from East Jackson High School, some district leaders, as well as for the first time we included a parent stakeholder on the interview team, and so that proved to be a very, very worthwhile addition, and so something that we'll consider doing moving forward with our principal positions potentially. So, but certainly Ms. Palmer rose to the top and was.
It's very refreshing. I'll tell you that that Monday of spring break, people who were off and many people were not available, but that interview team of teachers who were supposed to be on spring break spent about 4.5 hours going pouring. They had a rubric. They were very thoughtful in going through the applications and took this opportunity very, very serious. It was not taken lightly. And so today there was a great sense of excitement among that faculty, and Mr. Dixon has embraced this transition and is going to do everything he can to make it a smooth transition in support of Ms. Palmer. So I'm very excited for East High. It's bittersweet. Mr. Dixon's been a great asset, done great work there, but I think Ms. Palmer's just going to continue the great work and take it to the next level, and so she's going to really soar.
Yes. And just so you all know, we have a plan. We are putting together a comprehensive plan to support all 4 new principals next year. So they will not be without lots of support as they go through their first year.
Very good. All right, excellent. Well, that's a good financial update, and thank you again, Anna and Aaron, and all folks who contribute to that, and certainly Dr. Blankenship for continuing that work. We have had a busy month, if you can't tell from the packet here, just since the time we saw you at the board retreat, right? But then in addition to that, we've also managed to have our facilities review team and our West Jackson Middle School bid process begin, and so there's quite a bit to report from the operations side of things. So Mr. Gilbert and Mr. Patton and Mr. Farmer as well, share with us your
Sounds great.
updates.
Thank you. And Josh is going to lead us off with West Jackson and bring everyone up to date on that.
As Dr. Howard said, we had our bid opening for bid package 1. For the most part, we had a great turnout and really good numbers. One area in particular we're just not satisfied with, and we're looking at it, and we'll likely throw that into the next bid package. For the rest of it, we've given the go-ahead to all those major subs so they can start working. We've had doors being measured this week, and I was meeting with the air conditioning guy today, and we'll likely be changing out some of the units next weekend.
Wow.
Yeah. So everything's starting to roll. Bid package 2 will be out later this month or first of next month, which will include the grading, asphalt, and additions. So we'll be looking for those numbers. But I think for the most part, we're in pretty decent shape.
Especially good to be in this situation saying go ahead.
Yeah.
And the market is really, as we talked earlier about so much construction around, it's great to say go and get moving. It's a tough environment out there. As Josh said, we had one particular area that was difficult, and we fully expected, as we did in all the other packages, to have more participation. In fact, we had commitments for it, and then at the last minute, a couple of subcontractors couldn't do it. Just had too much work and got another job. So, and it's better to have somebody be honest and get the wrong people on the job. I'll just add to that we had a good meeting yesterday afternoon with staff at West Middle, and just shared pretty much the same information, expanded a little bit so they would have a good understanding of the scope of the work, and then talked about what they need to do at the school to prepare and get ready. They have boxes, tape, dispensers, and it's time to pack. So a lot to happen, especially with testing season and everything else coming up, but I think they're excited. It's going to be a great project.
Yeah.
So, any questions on West Jackson Middle?
Still comfortable to think we'll be done by end of year?
Better be, shouldn't we? I think I had that in charge before. We should be.
Yeah, I think so.
We've had all the rain we're gonna have, right? Of course, once we get the roof on, we're okay. Most of the rest of it's under roof, but the grading, we need some help with the grading.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next item, and you have this in your packet, the Facilities Review Committee for the Georgia DOE 5-year plan was a good day. We had representatives from Banks County. We were kind of surrounded with Banks and Barrow and Walton and Clark and Madison, and actually had a couple of people came from Douglas County just to join in. The new assistant superintendent there had been on the job 4 days, and his facility team was the next week.
Bless his heart.
And the superintendent left.
Oh.
So I think he was glad to see what it was all about. Good participation and kind comments from people. And so we are now, you have a resolution will be before you on Monday, which is to approve the 5-year plan, and then it goes to the State Board of Education, and it should be fully approved by June.
And if I may, Mr. Gilbert, if you don't read the whole packet, I understand, but if you would at least look at page 6 or the 6th page of the packet, which is the facilities, their team's comments, and they were all commendations. And so a very special thank you to Josh and Ted and others who prepared for that visit, because it really, really was a very good visit. They gave some really quality feedback.
Very good day. Item number 3, you also have some information in your agenda about, and these will be bullet points that we provided for potential lease of kitchen space at West Jackson Primary School. An individual was interested in it, Mr. Weasel, and we have met with him a couple times on site, and we've sat down and went through all the business points, and he is excited about the opportunity. We prepared a lease, and that has been, we are in the process of refining that lease now with our attorney, and then it will go to the tenant and just see if we can work out the details. But I think in principle, in concept, we are in agreement. So at the board retreat, I think we told you we were heading in that direction. We had some interest, and you would encourage us to pursue it. We did, and you can see the business points that are in your packet. It's a progressive lease that begins at a low point, not terribly low, a nice room, but it does increase over just a short period of time, at 30 months, about 300%. So it's a building that, as you know, it will be nice to have somebody in that portion of the building that will be there every day and contributes already to the community. So if you, as you go through that document, if you have any questions, please email me or ask me, and I'll be glad to provide any further information. The lease will match, of course, the business points, again, with some refinement. So if there's no questions, we'll keep moving forward and bring that to you. I'll have the lease in the packet for Monday.
I'm excited. I think this will be a great opportunity. It's a great mutual, benefit for the community, and great supporters of our school system. So, and thank you, Josh and Ted, for meeting with him, and then Ted for really going through those business points and attending to some of the business details. It's very good.
He's a great guy.
He's a good guy. Very good.
Fun to talk to him.
Appreciate it.
Item number 4 is just the potential of an opportunity. It's a property that I'm sure you discussed before, the old bus shop on Martin Street.
Yeah,
That some,
it's still there.
it's still there. It's a nice neighborhood, I like it.
Yeah.
We've had some interest expressed about it, and so we contracted for an appraisal. You have that appraisal. They appraised at $35,000. There are some remaining potential for some environmental costs, but overall, it would be, it's valued pretty much as a green space. The building itself doesn't offer anything other than some cost.
Yeah.
I guess that's not offering anything.
Are there tanks in the ground there?
There are.
Those tanks have been in the ground how many years?
They're filled.
Long.
So they were filled when the bus shop changed. They were filled at that point. So
When diesel or gas?
they were diesel.
Yeah.
They filled them on sand, so they were full of sand.
Yeah.
So no further problems, but generally,
We
those
going by
those tanks can be removed and remediated for not a lot of dollars in most cases, so. I prepared, there's a bid document in there, it's basically a sample, it does have dates in it, but it's just a draft that says if you want us to pursue this, seems the most appropriate way is to put it out for bid. Have an established time to come visit the site and inspect, do some testing,
Years ago.
do some testing on your own, and then put it out for bid, and board would still have the right to accept if they want or refuse or waive technicalities as you always do, but just see what bids come in. As you said, it's still there.
And we haven't used that site for a number of years, have we?
It's been at least 10 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it'd been a long
We used
time.
it for storage for a little while.
Yeah.
We haven't
Yeah,
done anything with it.
And we have to be conscientious to be good neighbors as well, keeping the
Yeah.
grass cut.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah.
So it's a little bit
We
of
do
a,
go by and cut.
oh
the
yeah,
grass
it's an expense for us just to keep that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So it may be an opportunity for somebody. We-
Yeah, maybe one of those neighbors would like to purchase that.
just
That'd be
banners.
nice.
Great walking
Space.
distance to
Town.
downtown.
That's a
Yeah.
great location.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
fine.
We already have interest in this.
We have had interest.
That's an interest. I suspect if we advertise, we would have some further interest. So there is a resolution that is in your Monday packet that says that you would essentially surplus, if there's no other educational need for it, surplus the property, and that you would authorize the superintendent to market.
So you all consider that? It is on the agenda for Monday night. If you have reservations or a reason that we should take it off, just let us know. Otherwise, we'll just proceed and try to dispose of that property and benefit, have a mutual benefit for it, so. Thank you again, Ted. This was you're right, this is something we probably should have attended to quite some time ago, but Josh has been.
At least the market's going up.
I was gonna say, that's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. It's appealing.
It's one of those places to forget about.
Until the grass grows too high, we upset
That's
the
it.
neighbors.
Yeah.
We do not want to do that. We've done that a time or two. So,
And then the last item under facilities and operations is a transportation update, and I will turn this over to Mr. Farmer
Thank you, Mr.
to
Chair.
share with you about some routing.
The routing plan that we currently have in place, we're gonna kind of mirror that next year.
And by the way, this is not in your packet. Well, it is now, but it's not, not a hard copy.
It's
either.
not, right. And I'll be happy to print it for you for Monday if you like.
If we look at the east side, it does mirror what we are currently doing now. We're going into the goal and conscientious that from our stakeholders, we want to try to keep the elementary separated as much as we can. So if you look on the east side, it's rather self-explanatory. We're keeping that separated. Middle and high school are currently combined, and the elementary schools will have their own designated drivers. If you look at the west side, we are using the elementary drivers to turn around and go pick up the middle school while leaving the high school separated. What this allows us to do is increase our efficiency on both sides, because we are combining that middle and high, and also we're using our elementary drivers on the west side to pick up that middle school area of children. So, any questions? You read through it. We are tweaking that some, looking at, maybe drilling down with the principals as far as the starting and end times, the bell schedule. So that's something that we'll be discussing in our next principals meeting.
Which is Thursday. So they've had a preliminary review of it, and we'll finalize that on Thursday.
And the difference is not huge difference, but it does help us account for the difference geographically in each side.
And I think it's worth noting for the board, just because it may be a point that someone asked, there may be different start and end times in the east and the west communities,
right.
Not by more than 5 or 10 minutes, but there may be some differences there.
The goal in mind, and we have to remember, is to give us as much time on each side, but especially the west side, using the elementary drivers to turn them around, for them to have time to go and pick up the students and get back to the middle school before bell time starts and that drop-off time. So as much time as we can give them in between helps us make that turnaround where we can be efficient in getting the children back as safely as possible. So as we go to the next slide, from the board retreat, we had talked about some ways that we could become efficient, some different ideas that we were pursuing, and this is something that we've looked at. Here again, it's just an option that we do have that we had talked about, and the program that we're using is called Pictometry, and it basically assists us within routing. And what it does is allow us to take a view from an oblique standpoint, and then also turn it and look at it from an east-west, north-south standpoint. Where normally you're looking on top, we're able to look at it from the sides, and it gives us a building footprint. The biggest thing that I like about it is it takes a lot of the legwork out to where we don't have to go out to every place, every road, and look. We're able to, and Mr. Nicholson, if you'll go ahead and move to the next slide. As you can see here, this allows us to take an aerial view of each subdivision, and this is just a rough example. You come into a subdivision, and right now we require no more than 2/10 of a mile. So from here, and as you can see, it allows us to measure and give you the exact distance from the head of the cul-de-sac all the way up to the proposed drop point. So as you come in off of 124 and go into this subdivision, there's a point here, here, and here. The bus comes down, picks up, turns around, and then comes back. And that allows for not only efficiency, but it keeps us from having to go and the cumbersome part that we have currently, we go down, we turn around in a cul-de-sac, and you don't see it in this picture, but there's cars lining the cul-de-sac. So it makes it extremely difficult for us to turn around in these cul-de-sacs, especially in areas of heavy construction as we're experiencing now. There'll be construction vehicles that completely block the road, and we can't access, and we have to have law enforcement come out and help us back out. So that is one of the benefits of what we're looking at. Now here again, this is just a potential. This could reduce our stops up to 50%, which saves the amount of time that students are on the bus. And as we know, the lower amount of time students are on the bus, they're able to arrive home at a decent hour, have those extracurricular activities that they do in the afternoons, and it also decreases the behavioral of students, because the longer someone stays on the bus, of course, the more opportunity that they get restless and frustrated, and we deal with that currently now. So this is just something that we're considering. Here again, it's just a potential avenue that we've looked at, and this is would be something we could consider for the middle and high school population.
I would add too that the thought here is subdivisions. That's this obviously doesn't apply if you're out on a highway or a long road, but if you think about a subdivision like that compared to what we're asking principals to do now, we're talking about 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes in our discussions with principals, maybe 10 minutes to gain from bell schedules. But if you go in a subdivision like this and you expand it to all of the subdivisions we go in, turning and stopping at every house and every cul-de-sac is way in excess, probably in just a couple of subdivisions, of what we've asked the schools to do for us. So I think it's a partnering with them to do the best to have predictable stops that our parents would know that these stops that would be more predictable in terms of times. And as David said, get the kids to school where they eat breakfast and go to school. So it's difficult. It's not, this isn't perfect. It's just we're going to look at safety above everything else.
Sure.
So, but we believe it's a reasonable place to go.
Absolutely. Anytime that you can have students minimize their amount of ride time on that bus, then naturally it's going to be a more pleasurable experience for them. And also for the parents.
And for the drivers.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Yes.
You got that right.
And here again, this is a potential that we have explored based on what we discussed at the retreat. The great thing I like about it here again is we hear it every day on the radios, there's vehicles blocking the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And people live in cul-de-sacs, they have to park somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's been a big issue. And some of your turnaround incidents that you have on the tail swing or backing up happen in our cul-de-sacs.
How soon do you think a decision will be made about this plan?
We are currently, as you see, working on that.
Yeah.
And that is something that we need to explore further. And what we'd like to do is continue our work. There are some other factors that we have to consider on some subdivisions that we go in. And we are working on that, but I think that it is feasible, possible that by the next board work session, we could have this to where we could present a plan and have that discussion.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. I appreciate Mr. Farmer and Mr. Gilbert working on this. And one other piece, we have had a difficult transportation year. There's no doubt about it. And it's improved as we've gone through the year. But this has the potential to help us so much. Your drivers care so much about those kids that they call in every time a child is not standing at the end of the driveway. And that's wonderful. But in some ways that's not reasonable. And so that has really created a challenge. If somebody calls in and said, oh, he just missed him, can you go back? And so then they finish the route and then they go back. Well, that domino effect affects everybody. So with these established pickup points, not only is it more predictable, but you hold some accountability and responsibility that when we hear at
And the
six
parents,
fifty-five,
yes,
be at this stop at
Yes,
6:55. If you're not there, then
Yeah.
we're gonna have to take you
Yeah.
to school.
Yeah.
Or a principal or assistant principal's coming to get you.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna send a bus back, you know,
No.
to pick folks up.
It speaks to the dedication
It
of our
does.
drivers
It does,
and their
absolutely.
desire to want to make sure our kids get to school.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, which is
It's
wonderful.
admirable.
But at the
not
same time,
feasible.
Yeah.
these children and these parents have got to understand, they've got a responsibility also.
That's
you know.
correct, and it does create a domino effect, because if you have, 3 students that aren't out, and although you're still in the subdivision, it's still time for that person to
That's
go
right,
back.
that's
And
right.
5 and 10 minutes can
Way
make the
back
difference
through there.
between that child having breakfast,
Mhm.
not having breakfast, and it doesn't affect one household, it affects the entire bus.
Everybody, exactly.
And we're talking anywhere from 30 to 60 kids.
Mhm.
So it's a idea that's definitely worth exploring, and that's what we're doing. And like I said, there are challenges in some areas, but what this does is it really helps us see it from a view to where we can cut out a lot of the legwork. Now, we still are gonna have to go out and look at these drop-off points as examples. But it takes away a lot of the guesswork, because we have an actual measurement on distance, which is great. So we're very excited about it. I appreciate my team working on it, Ms. Reynolds and Ms. Weaver and Anita Sears. They've done a great job, are doing a lot of legwork. And so I appreciate my whole team.
Absolutely, and I think you gotta send a shout out to Joel and
Yes,
our
absolutely.
county, because they.
He's awesome.
He's awesome, he is
He
really
is
awesome.
allowing us, helping us through this process, and this is something that has made the whole collaboration an easier task. So I look forward to continuing working with it.
I know you're looking at this as subdivisions, but are you gonna look at this as rural roads as well? Say like Highway 124, within a quarter of a mile, you may have 10 houses. Are you gonna have one spot for the 10 houses, or are you gonna do 10 spots?
No, sir. Currently, right now, we are only looking in the subdivision areas. And it may be that we could come to that eventually, but I think right now the pilot in the subdivisions is where we're looking at. The challenge is on 124 is
I
that,
just use that as an example, any road.
yes,
They don't
you-
have a sidewalk.
is that they don't
easy
have a
access,
sidewalk,
yeah.
and they have to walk.
Yeah.
And that is definitely a safety concern that would pop up immediately. Where in a subdivision, you have limited traffic coming in. A lot of our subdivisions do have sidewalks, and neighbors live next to each other, so hopefully everybody gets
Watches out for
along.
one another.
Yeah, watching out for each other. Well, even a rural road where it's not lighted and it's dark could create a potential safety issue for us.
Well, very good. Again, thank you for working on this, and let's commit to us having some decisive, a decision with our recommendation by the May board meeting, because we definitely want to give enough time before school gets out that we do some communication with our parents and give them some, because for some families, this is going to be a significant change, and some parents will want to drive their kids to that stop instead of having them walk, and that's a family decision and respectable and understandable, but we want to give them some lead time on how to adapt to the delivery model change. So. All right, very good. I think that is all the items, unless there's anything else from the staff or from the board that you would like us to cover.
I'd like to have a few minutes for executive session if we possibly could.
Absolutely, certainly. So,
We have a motion to go to executive session.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.